Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm just trying to get this thing like to
Hello,
move
Sam.
away. How's things going? How's lockdown been treating you in the last, it's 5 weeks now?
Well, we started isolating already from the first address, so I think it's like 6 weeks now.
Yeah. And how many times have you been able to leave the house?
I think it sort of alternates between my husband and I going to the shop. So yeah, like 1 week on, 1 week off.
Yeah, like I've left once in 5 weeks
Oh,
and I'm
really?
missing outdoors now. I'm really missing outdoors.
I know, I know. I just must apologize if the kids come through. I am in the dining room and I try to like put them away with a snack platter and the iPad, and but you never know.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. We're talking again about remedial children today. I know your experience is a little different than mine and Sharon's with regards to the fact that Ollie's issues were brought to your attention by his teacher at school. Um,
Yes.
just tell those who are watching a little bit about Ollie's story and how you guys came about getting him assessed.
Okay, so Ollie last year was in grade 1, and he was at a government school in our area, a very good one, but he
Yeah,
was one of 37 children in the class. We were very blessed that he happened to be in the head of the grade, I think, or the, yeah, in her class. If we didn't have such an experienced teacher, I think he would probably still be at that school, but he
yeah,
was drowning. And yeah, so he started off fine. He had a lot of friends at the school from his primary school, and he was very comfortable there. But as soon as things started, like speed tests or spelling tests, anything with a time pressure, because he has
yeah,
auditory processing disorder, like they would be on the third word and he's still trying to like process like fox. How do I spell fox? You know,
yeah,
and he would be like, wait for me, wait for me, wait for me. And in a class of 37, you can't really wait for somebody. Do you know what I mean? They have to
yeah,
carry on, and it's like, you know, sink or swim kind of thing.
yeah,
So by about mid-year, she had sort of brought to our attention that, you know, she felt there was something, but she wasn't quite sure what it was. And in term 3, when we went back, we decided to take him for a global assessment with an educational psychologist. And the results of that came back that he was an auditory processing disorder child. He was speech delayed, but he's
yeah,
really high functioning. He doesn't come across as your typical sort of remedial child in a lot of instances. So we
mm,
didn't notice like a busyness. He presents very differently at school than he does in an environment where he feels like nurtured and safe at home.
yeah,
So a lot of the stuff, besides like the time pressure stuff, we didn't notice. But if I think back now, I think there's sort of like small little cues. Like I would call
mm,
him. He was watching the TV. There's another sound, and I'd say, "Ollie, Ollie," and I just think this kid is ignoring me. Like
yeah.
what is wrong with my child? Is he just being abstinent? Like, what is wrong? And now I feel bad, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, did I not tell you about that? Like, I'm really sorry.
No, but I can totally understand that because it comes across like really frustrating. Like it seems like they don't even really care that you're in the room. Yeah, because that is our experience as well. But with us, it's exactly the same. So I have auditory processing issues as well. So my kids can come tell me something while I'm watching something, and I haven't heard a single word they say. And then my daughter will remind me the following day. She'll be like, "But I spoke to you about this yesterday." I'm like, "When?" I don't remember.
So yeah, so we went down that route. We got the results, and we decided, you know, we would react as fast as we possibly could. And we were so grateful that we caught it now in grade 1, well, last year,
Mm,
grade 1, that we could do something about it now as much as we could. And the suggestion was remedial. So yeah, we started looking at where we could put him, and we found an amazing school. But getting a transfer between the one government school to the other was quite a nightmare. There was so much admin involved, and it was nothing in our hands. It was left to the deputy principal at the other school. They had to do copies of his work. There was, I mean, we went to the neurologist. We had, you know, we had all of that done. And anyway, we were very lucky because we were worried with the Department of Education doing end of year exams. That they even sort of acknowledge our email to transfer this child. And in the space of 2 weeks, they actually did. And so we were very lucky. And he passed grade 1 with still exceptional marks. That people even said, to me, why are you moving him? I mean, this child is getting the marks. And I've always sort of said, well, like, I understand like he excelled at certain things, and none of his marks were particularly bad at all. But should he get to grade 3 or grade 4, he might just completely have a nervous breakdown, and I don't want my child to be in that environment. I would rather him be in a remedial environment where he is catered for.
Yeah. See, I think the thing most people don't understand with remedial children is if you don't catch it early enough, they start to present other problems as they become older, because now they try to adjust to what the environment is like, and what they are struggling with is not dealt with, you know, closely. We had the same questions when we moved my son. And luckily, we moved him, the school that he's in, well, our kid's in the same school. So he's been in that school for 5 years. But when we did the transfer, it was a lot easier back then, except for the fight with the current school. But it was a lot easier. We didn't have to go through the process of going through the education department like you have to do now.
Yeah.
What do you think? You were speaking in your blog. For those of you who don't know, Megan has a blog where she talks about this stuff. What do you speak a lot about his anxiety. How do you think he was affected, his anxiety was affected at the school compared to the other kids in his class?
So obviously already in a bigger class, he was very overwhelmed because he had come from a pre-primary where there was, I don't know, 18 to 20 kids. Now he was 37, new environments, be in school uniform, you know, just even like the whole shift for anybody, someone who doesn't suffer from anxiety. The leap from grade R to grade 1 is huge. The amount of homework, the pressure, new rules, just all of that, like you could immediately see a shift in him. He was happy, like he enjoyed school, and he never ever once said, no, I don't want to go to school or whatever. But you could see he was panicky beneath the surface. And I suffer from anxiety myself, so there's a couple of things that I could recognize. But it was mostly, and then he would become quite tearful as well in the class environment. If he couldn't, wait for me, wait for me, wait for me. And then he's so worked up about like getting them to wait for him that he then starts becoming tearful. And he said to me, like, Mommy, I cried at school today, but I was trying to hide. So no one, I cried quietly. Do you know, like shame.
So sad.
You don't want your child to ever have to feel like that. Do you know what I mean? You want them to feel safe and accepted. And the big thing for me was when we started at the new school this year, we had like a welcoming assembly by the principal, and she said, where your kids came from, they were the exception. Here they are. Here they are the norm. And for me, I was just like, hallelujah, this is what I want. And Ollie himself has said that he feels safe where he is, although he misses like his friends that he'd been in school with for years. He feels safe where he is. He feels like he can be himself. And
yesterday when I spoke to Sharon, we were talking about how parents tend to kind of, especially mothers, we tend to kind of put our guilt in this whole situation. What could I have done? What did I do wrong? And all that kind of things. What was your experience when the teacher told you that something was amiss?
So she didn't sort of like hint at, like she couldn't put her finger on it, and that's why she sent to the professionals. And I was just thinking like, but I also, a part of me sort of felt like I knew this was coming. Do you know what I mean? I knew he was different, and And that's okay. It's absolutely, we've always
Yeah,
brought both of the kids to say, like, you know, it's okay to be different, and you're accepted for who you are. You are the child we were meant to have, and just do your best, whatever that might be. And I remember, like, when they told me, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, my biggest fear was, how was I going to tell Ollie? How was he going to react? And he, because he handled it like a champ, I felt okay about it. So we told him, we sat down on the Friday. My husband had been out of the country for work. And we told him, and the first thing he said was, phew, now I don't have to keep up.
Oh.
And then when he said that, and he was like, fine. And then he's like, okay, cool. Can we watch movie night? And like, oh, you know, and I was like, okay, it's okay. We accepted it. It's all going to be okay. And from that moment, I knew, because he was okay with it, I was okay with it.
Yeah.
There was no one to blame. You know, it's quite hard to diagnose these things at a young age, because it was also our first child. He was a boy. We didn't know what age appropriate, you know, like, is it age appropriate? Is it only because he's a boy? Our second child was a girl. She's completely different. Like, different personality, different temperament, different milestones. So, yeah.
I see that the tendency is that we end up finding this out with our firstborns, because even with ours, he started speaking a lot later. We didn't know it was late. And like you, we had a daughter after that who started speaking at 9 months. So I just attributed it to the fact that they were a boy and a girl, and they were different. You know, until until he'd get frustrated. I mean, he was 5 or 6 years old, I think 6 or 7, around there, when we'd have a conversation with him, and he'd get frustrated because he can't necessarily repeat back to me what I was telling him. And he'd have complete meltdowns at the table when it was time to do homework. And I just couldn't understand what exactly was making him so upset, because then he'd shut down emotionally and just withdraw himself. What is your, so you've only been in the school now for 1 term, and I know they're getting a lot of work from the online system the school has been using. They've been training some stuff. What has your experience been like now from the older school to what you're experiencing now?
So also the big thing for me was, with the old school, I obviously didn't have the teacher's telephone number. Never had it. I think even for a child that had an issue, I think I saw her 3 times in the year. Yeah. And for very brief, like, interactions. Whereas from the moment I was at the new school, I had the teacher's telephone number. Okay, because I also happened to be the class mom. But I had, they use something called Dojo. I know about that. And on that is his entire team of therapists, his coach, his teacher, his teacher's assistant. Everybody is on there that I could send a personal DM to without me even having their telephone number. I just felt like I had the support that I needed. We sat at the beginning of the year and we discussed goals for Oliver for the year with my husband. Ollie wasn't obviously in the meeting. It was the teacher and assistants. And I just felt from the get-go we were on the same page. And if I needed anything, I had, and I do have, the support that I need.
Let me just highlight to those who are watching, the school we're talking about does feedback sessions for our children. At least in the beginning, it's 4 times a year, but the older they get, it becomes less. They have a psychologist on standby who works at the school. They have remedial therapists, they have speech therapists. So our kids get, like, literally every kind of support system you can hope for in a situation like this.
I think we have 6 sessions a week, group therapy sessions, between OT, speech and remedial, I think.
You know what, the thing that was stood out for me the most was, you are so, like, you guys are still in foundation phase, and we are doing grade 7 there now. And when you go to the older classes, they actually have a feedback session for parents where they explain to you your child's learning style. And they give you a complete breakdown with a booklet of how your child learns, which has helped me tremendously, because I otherwise wouldn't have known how my son gets information in if they didn't have that kind of session. Which is why I advocate for remedial schools, because I also came from one myself. Do you think that a lot of the things that you're learning from the current school you're going to implement with your teaching your daughter at home?
Well, I do find that they are incredibly different children. Sophie is quite advanced. The two of them are sort of chalk and cheese. I do find she's busier than Oliver. But yeah, I find with Sophie, she often like tries to finish her sentences. She's just turned 5. He is 7, turning 8. And she's a know-it-all. She knows everything about like, everyone. And so I don't know, like how I would, because I find she's still quite young. Her speech is age appropriate, if not better. So like they're different. I don't know.
Do you think that, how can I say, as they get older, they're going to experience different things in the school? And our conversation with our son he's been talking a lot about going to a mainstream school. Now, I've moved from a mainstream school, from a remedial school, and I know how devastating that can be for a child who was told they were cured when this isn't actually a disease. It's just something that you learn differently.
No.
So, do you think you'll be having a conversation like that maybe in a couple of years, considering the fact that the schools, remedial schools particularly, don't do pure maths, right? And with us going to high school next year, we have to consider my son's career. He wants to be in business, and he wants to do the technical kind of stuff that require pure math. What do you think the outlook for you in the future is going to be with Ollie in the school? Because the school goes to
So the initial feedback from the educational psychologist was he's there for remediation. He's not going to be there forever.
Yeah.
Because he is getting good marks. He is still age appropriate for his grade. He hasn't failed anything. He just sort of needed that extra time. We have also put him onto meds now this year, which we tried last year and it had absolutely no effect. And now we've tried again. We've taken him to a psychiatrist and the results have been incredible. Because sometimes anxiety can present. So although the neurologist last year said that he didn't have ADD or ADHD or anything, we put him onto Ritalin, a trial last year, to see that he could be as focused and attentive as possible in those situations that were giving him anxiety. So we tried him on it for a month. And the teacher, they get like a form to mark out, and there was zero change. He had no side effects, but he had no effects. He showed no effects of it. So we did take him off it, and we thought we'd give him a term at the new school to settle in and see how he coped. And the suggestion was, and his teacher, who is incredible, picked up that he was fidgeting a lot. He presented as distracted, which anxiety can present as.
Yeah.
So her suggestion was the psychiatrist route, which we did, and we are forever grateful because he's amazing. And we've tried him on a double dosage, 7 days a week, and he is a different child. He is so concentrated and driven. He's incredibly self-aware, and it's been remarkable.
We were talking yesterday about the stigma attached to children who go to remedial schools, because there isn't anything necessarily wrong. It's just that they learn differently. And in most cases I've seen with, I don't know if you know, there are a lot of actors who actually have ADHD who've had to have remedial help, and they've been pretty successful in their lives. What do you think you're going to do going forward, talking to him about the stigma attached to it? Because even me as an adult, when I tell people that I have ADHD, even as an adult, some people are like, I knew. But other people are like, okay, is something wrong with you? What do we have to do? Or whatever the case may be. How do you think you're going to have that conversation with him going forward? Because I think we need to constantly be kind of updating with these children specifically, because their environment is very much different than it is in the general world.
Yeah. Like, we've always had very open conversations with him, even though he's still young. And
Mm.
we've always said, like I said, it's okay to be different. It's okay to need a little extra help and a little extra time. You are the child we were meant to have, and because
Mm.
he accepts you for who you are, you need to accept yourself. For us, that's the
Yeah.
most important thing, is to build his confidence, and for him to know I'm different and it's okay. I can dance to the beat of my own tune and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so for us, we are working on his confidence. That was one of our goals.
Mm.
Because for me, that is the grounding and the foundation that will help him accept who he is. Do you know what I mean? As a real child, should he need it for the rest of his schooling career, that's okay. We don't want to put a time pressure on it. Like he said to me earlier in the year, like, how much longer am I going to be at this school? And I said, like, why? He's like, no, I'm just asking, because it's big. You know what? You're going to be there as long as you need to be there, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'm finding with our son in particular, when we spoke about moving for the maths issue, the one thing that really hit him was like, but he loves it there. He loves it there because he feels accepted. He doesn't have to be answer to people for why he thinks or understands things the way that he does. And I mean, like I told you the other day, that he has changed tremendously since changing schools. He's become more independent. He's become more self-aware. And he's hit puberty hard. One of the things that I was wanting to ask you, because he's so much younger than mine is now, do you feel like he emotionally understands himself a little better, or is a little more sensitive? Because in my case, I'm starting to feel like children with remedial needs seem to have a little more sensitive disposition emotionally.
Yeah, Ali has always been the more sensitive of my two children, and it was like a common theme throughout all of our years with the teacher, that Ali is he's an emotional child. He's an August baby, end of the year kind of thing. And he's incredibly empathetic. He has the sweetest soul and nature. He's the kind of child that wants to help everybody. Like in a situation where they were playing pass the parcel, and he was the one who won the prize. The little child next to him started crying, and he gave him the present.
Oh.
Like that is who he is. And he's very loving and nurturing, but he is very sensitive. So we also have to be mindful of saying, like, Ollie, don't cry, because we need him to know it's okay to cry. But we are sort of trying to work on coping mechanisms, obviously. That's one of the things he's learning at the new school, like how to cope in an instance where he feels anxious, or he feels, maybe like a bit more of an outsider, or
I'm finding also with our son, like around that age, we knew he was pretty sensitive, but now that he's a teenager, sensitive is an understatement. Because now we have this I'm a man sort of pushback thing, but at the same time, he's very emotional. I have this personal belief, and I want to know how you feel about it. I have this personal belief that the reason why we need remedial people in this world is because they see things from a very different point of view, but at the same time, they know how to genuinely be empathetic. I'm not giving myself a hands up here, but do you think that's the reason why we have children who have remedial needs? Because before, these people were dismissed altogether. They were dismissed as naughty, or they just didn't want to learn, or they were kind of pushed to the side. And I see a lot of the people who I know who have remedial issues growing up have kind of excluded themselves from the rest of the world and all the things that they could do for themselves.
Like I said, Ali, like you've just said, empathetic. He is so empathetic, and he always sees the best in everybody. That's why I always worried he was like a soft target, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because he sees the world through rose-tinted glasses. Everyone is good, and he expects everyone to be good, and he wants to help the guy on the side of the road. Like, Mommy, why can't he come to our house? It's raining. Like, this is big on the side of the road. And he's just naturally that child. And like I said, he doesn't see a difference. And we've had this discussion. When he arrived at the school, I was a little bit worried that he might say something, like, MJ knows there's a lot of children at the school with cochlear implants, like something I've never seen before until he went to the school. There's children that might need to walk around with headphones on to help obscure the external noises.
Yes.
And I was very worried with him going there that he would say something to them like, why are you wearing that? Or like, you know, what is this? Because he hadn't been like exposed to it before. Never once for a second said to me or said to anyone that I know, why do you look like that? Or like, just accepts everyone for who they are. He doesn't care if you take 10 minutes to speak a sentence or whatever. Just come dig with me in the sandpit kind of thing. Yeah, he's very accepting of it, and I think maybe remedial children are. Once they've accepted themselves, they accept everyone for who they are. Yeah.
And isn't that like the biggest issue I think we deal with across the board? I feel like in the last 10 years or so, people have become more aware that if they are not self-accepting of themselves, it tends to play out in other areas of their life. And I feel like it's so great that we can recognize our kids this young, because we need to tell them now, there's nothing wrong with you. Everything about you is perfect the way that it needs to be. And at the end of the day, you were born this way for a reason going forward, you know. I was telling Sharon yesterday, we have more children in our family we were starting to pick up who have remedial needs, but don't have the same kind of resources that we've had, right? We were lucky enough to know, because I was a remedial child, I knew already which direction to go, but I know a lot of people who don't know where to go. How do you think we should advise those people what the first point of contact is? Because a lot of the public schools also can't, they don't know how to identify, because the teachers are overwhelmed. There's 45 plus children in a class. Most times you can't identify that this particular child is suffering from, I don't know, say auditory sensitivity or one of those other things.
So yeah, we were, like I said, our story is very different because we were very lucky with the teacher.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for her, and he might have been on someone else's class, he was less experienced. In a class of 37, to figure out that this child was lagging behind, still getting the marks, but was causing anxiety, we were very lucky. And I don't think that everyone will have that case. And I think as a parent, you need to start sort of paying mind to what is age appropriate. And I think always the first port of call should probably be, if they're old enough, the educational assessment, the global assessment from an educational psychologist. The two of us have discussed it, but I do think, like you said, some of it you need to sort of take with a pinch of salt, because it's how the child presents on the day. They are sort of marked with their IQ over 2 days, 2 morning periods, and that is, you know, how they are boxed.
Yeah.
So it's how you take that information and go forward. And my best suggestion would be to just do whatever you can for your child, and as soon as possible. I know it is expensive. To go and see the neurologist is not cheap, and you're having a follow-up. To go and see the psychiatrist is not cheap, and there's multiple follow-ups. But you just sort of got to do whatever is in your means to reach out to whatever professionals you can to get that advice as soon as possible and as young as possible for your child. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you can see how your child's educational journey, what kind of path you're going to put them on, because you want to build the foundation, a strong foundation that they can through life then, you know, be accepted, do whatever they want to do, whatever their heart desires.
So in closing, with regards to that, we're in lockdown now, and they've been talking about schools opening. We've already decided our kids are not going back until all of this is over, which means I'll be homeschooling for another million years. But parents have the opportunity now to be in close proximity with their children for however long they choose to keep them at home, right? What do you think the things that they can do to try and recognize if there are issues? I'll give mine after you give your kind of the things that you think you could have noticed earlier before the teacher said anything that you now know.
So, for example, Ali often, and it's a common sort of remedial mistake, it doesn't necessarily mean they are dyslexic or whatever, but he swaps his B's and his D's. So sometimes he would write, say, okay, Ollie, write dog, and he writes bog. Little things like that, which I didn't know was a remedial, because I know it is a common issue. Speech errors. So how much they can recite back to you, like a comprehension, like you said, tell them a sentence, ask them to tell it back to you, kind of thing. Because obviously with Ali, with the processing, it's slower, so he doesn't take it all in. He might take it fragments. So those for us are probably, I mean, he did speech therapy long before he even went to grade 1. But we did think it was maybe just a speech delay, exactly. But
I think for us, I did tell you the other day, I'm thinking of taking my third born as well for an assessment, because we knew early on that there were issues with him. He has a very rare blood condition called hyper IgG syndrome, but he presented with a lot of other issues after that as well. So I've noticed in the time that we are at home, his teacher did tell me previously, and I did say yesterday that he was a little slower in class, and I couldn't understand why, but his distractibility is incredible. Like, someone walks past him and his attention is completely out of the door. Now, I know he's not ADHD because I am. He sits still for long periods of time. But it's things like that, like the minute they hear a little sound from the other side of the room and they completely turn around to place their attention in wherever the sound is coming from. Just pay attention to how many times they do that, or how many times you have to ask them to repeat or do something before they actually fully comprehend what it is they need to do. And I think most people think, hey?
I said, oh, how many times you have to call them to get their attention? And it's appropriate. I mean, calling a 2-year-old, you might call them 10 times, but calling a 6-year-old 10 times, is that maybe not a sign?
And some of the children present these things a little later than others, because mine now is the same age as Ollie, but previously he does really well at school. He's a favorite with all his teachers because he's a little bit of a suck-up. But he's so kind and generous with people. We'll go somewhere and he'll be friends with them immediately. He doesn't have really anxiety, but he is very emotional. And within 2 seconds of saying something to him, he's completely just lost the entire plot. And then we struggle to get it back to doing an activity. When a few minutes ago we were fine, you know what I'm saying? So it's things like that we've picked up with him. Now with my eldest, we had similar issues. The complete meltdowns for small, things that are reasonable for little kids, but for a child who's 7 or 8 years old, at that point they have so much self-awareness, you think that they can breathe a little bit. So with him, we started journaling. He writes his feelings down, and when I ask him, how do you feel about something, he can't express to me exactly word for word what he's thinking. We had an issue earlier this morning. He had to write a story about his favorite fruit and vegetable, and he was like, but I can't write a story. And it took an hour just to get him to write about his favorite fruit and vegetable. So things like that are highlighted to me now that I know that it may be time for an educational assessment, just to see where we're struggling. Because the school and his school, we had previous issues with my elder son. If they are saying he's a little slower, then I know, okay, something is definitely up. But thank you so much for your time. I thank you so the guys. We actually met through Sharon and coincidentally found out our kids all go to the same school. I'm pretty sure we're going to hang out at some point. But thank you so much. I love Ollie's story. Guys, go and follow her blog. I'm going to post it again. I posted it yesterday as well. She talks about Ollie's story and the assessments that he had to go through. I think all of our experiences are so different, but we all need to be there for our kids, especially when they're going through things like this. And big ups to you for really paying attention to what Ollie needed. And I need to say big ups to his teacher as well, because it's difficult for the teachers right now. They are overwhelmed with everything that they are doing. But thank you so much. I'm going to post this on YouTube, so you'll see it in a couple of days. Guys, go and follow Megan. It's Mama Like Me. Her blog is amazing. So I'm like the new subscriber. But I hope things go well with Ollie. We'll probably do a follow-up in a couple of months and hear how he's doing in the school
Yeah.
after all of the drama ends. And how this, how the school is kind of making this work for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much. And tell Ollie I say hi.
I will. I will. He's off being quiet. Meds. But it was
Okay.
you, and thank you for sharing your story too. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. I'll talk a little bit more as time goes by about being ADHD as an adult, and being a remedial adult as well, because I think that's going to help our kids as they are older as well, because they need to now look at this new outlook of their lives, which is separate from everybody they know who are normal.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
They are the new.
Yeah, the whole world is a new normal now, so they put it perfectly. But thanks so much. We'll chat.
Thank you.
Okay then. Bye.